Yes. Yes. Happy Wednesday. Almost leap year day. Is that correct? This is something a little different, which is a war game. I forget which, let's see. I was on a Discord server. And by the way, I've now kind of soft launched a Discord server. You could check various places where I put the invite, hoping everything works. Hopefully, some folks give it a try. There's nothing there. I was on a different Discord in which there are things going on. I want to say it was the plus one Discord, and one of the folks in there dropped a copy of this game. They just wanted to get some more attention out there. It's called Demigod: Epic Adventures in the Greek Mythos. And I mean, just looking at this cover, it just looks cool. Got me really jazzed up to take a look at it. Now, I haven't looked at it yet because that's what I do now. This isn't Not I'm not gonna put this as sponsored, it's not sponsored, they didn't ask me to look at it, they really just dropped in the chat. I grabbed it, I did ask them where they could find it, and they gave me the itch link that is in the description. I get a lot of inspiration, so I'm not a war gamer by trade, I never had a chance to play war games or run war games. I have several books, mostly the kind of, I guess I would put in quotes, kinda classic rule sets and some of the books. Tony Bath, I think I have one of his books. I think he was the one with the Hyperborean campaign, which is kind of my interest level there. But I found, especially looking at OSR and OSR adjacent kind of old school D&D and looking chainmail and all these kind of things, that there's a lot of neat things we can glean off of these rules that we could potentially use in our own games, whether we end up wanting to play with his rules or not. Now, I would love to war game. Maybe at one of the cons, I'll be able to get into a war game or sit in on one. I did join. There's a group here in Brooklyn that does war games, and I kind of, amongst other things, and I did kind of sign up for their, I don't know, it's a meetup or listserv, wherever they are, to kind of get updates. But I haven't had a chance to go yet. But anyway, Demigod. I'm excited. Let's see what we've got here. Make sure I've got. Yes, I should be clicked in. All right. So who wrote this thing? This is, let's see, layout design by Chris Bonweg and Justin Vandermeer. Rules design by Chris Bonweg. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Tess Tucker as a play testing consultant. All right. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Here we go. Okay, forward. Ow. I got some tea here and I almost put my finger in it. It's one of these days, not to get sidetracked already. I mean, but that is what I do. One of these days in New York where it's warm out temperature wise, but it feels cold, at least to me. So I'm sitting here and it's 50 degrees, 51 degrees, I think. And yet I'm cold. I don't know what's going on. So I donned up some green tea for the working man. Okay. The men, women, and monsters of Greek mythology have shaped much of the storytelling of the modern world. Demigod gives you a chance to tell your own stories in the world of Greek mythology. Pit heroes of your own creation against legendary monsters. Find loot, earn experience, and turn your band of heroes into full fledged gods. I mean, right off, this gives me kind of just fantasy adventuring. I'm sure we're going to get into the layout and stuff, which is going to be much more in the uh, war gamey arena vibe, whatnot. But just reading that, I mean, sign me up for that in terms of just playing a regular role playing game. Now we have a true introduction. Chapter 0, as it's called. Welcome to Demigod, a tabletop game that allows players to create their own heroes, lead quests to slay monsters, find enchanted items, and ultimately become gods themselves. In this book, you will find everything you need to play through a game, including rules on how to create your hero and their party, how to set up a table, and how to undertake quests. A game of Demigod is generally quick. Once you've learned the rules, you easily have a game completed in an hour or two. Although one off games are possible, combining games into an ongoing campaign is the best way to play. Playing through a campaign enables your hero and their party to grow in power and experience, leaving their own mark on Greek mythology. You can spend the drachmas you acquire during quests to purchase new and better items, acquire new abilities, or establish a camp. Demigod is designed to be played either alone or as a competitive game between two players. Above all, however, it is intended to be fun, and these rules provide a framework for the situations that occur in play. Use your best judgment or come to a mutual agreement with your opponent, resorting in a roll off of if the situation cannot be solved through discussion. Finally, remember this book is just a framework. If you have ideas on how to make a game of Demigod more interesting, there's nothing stopping you from trying them. And what I'm going to do here, just real quick, because it seems like this is in spreads, and my reader here is trying to give me spreads. And I think there we go. Let me go back to full screen. Okay, this makes more sense for viewing. So there's we just read the introduction, what we'll need to play. Well, they really made these. I don't know. I'm not sure why they. Here's my thing number one. Those list items are tiny, and I don't know why. There's plenty of room on the page, so it looks like a 3 foot by 3 foot table, miniature figurines, a tape measure, ruler in inches, some six-sided dice, a minimum of one copy of the hero sheet, and a pencil. So pretty easy there, right? Obviously, you're going to be setting up the terrain or whatever you're doing on the table, tape measure, or some kind of ruler. I think a lot of times with Wargame, I see with people work or strings or those, or if you have a flexible ruler, I think it's probably a little bit easier than a hard ruler, a stiff ruler, a stiff upper lip. But I mean, really, you could be talking about playing any kind of game, and that's kind of what part of what drew me to this is this. Yes, it's a war game, but I feel like but it's also bringing in a lot of role RPG type aspects. So I'm hoping there's a lot of crossover. And I find with the war games, I like how they get really, or maybe I should say this, and this is probably shouldn't be true, or it's probably not true, and I probably shouldn't assume it's true. But I think with war games, I tend to look at the things they do for weapons and maneuvers. I feel like to me they have just I don't know if I should call it maybe I call it a higher authority. I just feel like they're more likely to be accurate and less kinda hand wavy, whatever, because they're trying to do more of a specific simulation as opposed to an overall thing. Does that make sense? Maybe and I'm probably wrong. I mean, even just hearing me say this, I'm like, well, I don't know why I would think that they have more authority, but I presume that there's more homework done, which I probably shouldn't. But I feel like oftentimes I'm trying to get little gems of stuff that might work and combat and things and maybe how combat works. And I really like war games for just seeing how it's done when that's kind of the thing. So I am curious to kind of what this sort of Bronze Age of Heroes setup is going to bring for us. And there's a hero sheet in the back of the book. All right, chapter one: Heroes. Creating a major hero. I'm going to I'm not going to read the whole thing end to end, so I'm going to try to pick out the major points. So there's a hero sheet at the back of the book. Unfortunately, it's at the back, so I can't see it right now. All right, so it's basically saying, okay, get your hero's name. All right, so here's kind of more where I want to get to the stat line. Yeah, we know we always got stats, but I feel like I need to zoom in here a bit. Maybe that will help a little bit. I still wish I just I know all this stuff is done by individual people. So maybe if they do a second run version 2, bump up the size on those lists. I don't know. I don't know if it's how much it's saving you by having them smaller, but it just means I gotta zoom in or squint, which I guess on a PDF is not bad to zoom in, but still, it's just I don't know if the space is worth the gain. Okay, or space is the legibility is worth whatever you gain in the space, saving the space. That's the best way I should put it. Okay, move. How much your hero moves per turn. All right. Combat, how well your hero does in hand to hand or range shooting. All right, so we just have one, there's combat stat. That's it. Speed, how well your hero moves, and also how well they can dodge arrows and the like affected by armor. Okay, so basically your dex, right? So if you wanted to kind of D&D-ify this for a second, or your movements, it's our movement rate. Combat would, I guess, would be strength. Speed would be our dex. Resolve would be con. It sounds like your hero's ability to stand up to the mythological events surrounding them. Okay, armor, basically your armor class. I'm not sure how they're doing it. It looks like this is a some kind of D6 system. The ability of your hero's armor to protect them, and then finally health, the amount of health each hero has. That's basically the hit points, which determines how much damage they can take. Okay, sounds good. So then you can see they basically have it in table form. Movement 6, combat as okay, it's presented as a modifier. So combat +1, speed +1, resolve +1, armor +0, health 16. And then, oh, okay. So a hero's natural bonuses to combat speed and resolve cannot be higher than +7. A little bit of a different kind of distribution than you'd find in say D&D, where you generally it's like +2 to +4 would be your depending on what version you're playing at, would be your kind of upper bounds. Let's see, creating a minor hero. So that's just for regular heroes. Minor heroes, does it say it was a major hero? Oh yes, okay, yeah, major hero. So a minor hero is that what is that? Creating a minor hero is much the same as creating a major hero with two changes: the number of gods that can patronize your hero and their stat line. Minor heroes can choose from 8 patron gods and goddesses. A minor hero stat line starts the same as a major heroes with some changes based on which god or goddess they choose. Ah, I see. Okay, that's the one thing I skipped over in the major. So with a major hero, you choose from one of 3 gods to serve as their patron: Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades. So basically, you're kind of like a upper level, maybe level's not the right word, upper tier demigod, right? So you're a child of the majors, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades. If you're basically a grandchild of the majors, in other words, maybe you're Athena's kid, then you're a minor hero. And then we have the same kind of stats here, but if you're for minor heroes, if you're Ares gets you +2 to combat, Athena gets you +1 to combat and +1 to resolve. Hephaestus gets +2 armor, Hermes +1 speed, Aphrodite +1 resolve, Dionysus +2 resolve. That's interesting. Demeter +1 health, Apollo +1 combat when making ranged only, or +2 combat, but only when making ranged attacks. Let's see. Well, hey, Ian, interesting that Aphrodite. Is there some other? Not really much advantage to getting Aphrodite over Demeter. I mean, over Dionysus, right? Because she gets +1 resolve there, and well, I mean, she's kind of a. I wonder if there'd be something else to give for her. Feels like she's a little bit. Maybe it's just intentional because she's a goddess of love, and I don't know, and killing beasts isn't her thing. But getting +1 resolve puts her kind of below, definitely below Athena, also below Dionysus. Because why wouldn't you take the +2 resolve, or go for Athena and get +1 combat and +1 resolve? So it might be nice to give her a little something, something. I don't know. Maybe there's a thematic reason. Additionally, minor heroes of Ares start with a sword and shield at no extra cost, and minor heroes of Athena start with a spear and shield at no extra cost. Again, Aphrodite gets stonewalled. So I do like this idea. So part of the thing I'm going to be doing in this stream, because I'm not ultimately a wargamer, or I'm not currently a wargamer, is well, like I said, I get a lot of inspiration from war games. So I am constantly going to be looking at, ooh, what can this how can we take these ideas and use them maybe in a game, in our role playing games? And I think certainly looking at the idea of what gods or goddesses a character patronizes, and then having that mechanized in a way, I think is a really neat idea that doesn't often get dealt with. Usually you kind of pick your god, and you might pick them because they represent the kind of things you're doing. Obviously, if you're a cleric, that'll have some influence. But if you're a fighter, then whichever god you pick doesn't really do too much. I mean, in general, by default. But here saying that you could be a fighter, obviously, if you're a fighter of Ares, boosting up your kind of strength or combat type stat is good. But you could also look at it, well, I could become, if I was a fighter, but I was a patron, if I decide to patronize, I don't know. I mean, any of them, they have some good things. So it's kind of a neat thing to look at, because I really like this idea of building up your character with these sort of in-world hooks, and then having them be patrons, or having them patronize different gods, and having them be both mechanical stuff as well as the fictional element, I think is cool. So I am down with this. Okay, so items. All heroes have slots for carrying items. Major heroes have 4, minor heroes have 3, and minions have 1 each. We haven't covered minions yet, but I get that. I'm sure what the gist is. That's essentially it. Okay. That said, it's a foolish hero ventures out on a quest understaffed. All right, so we can now assemble our adventuring party. Every major hero begins the game with 500 drachmas, which they can use to hire minor heroes to aid them on their quests. So you've got a major hero, potentially one or more minor heroes. An adventuring party must consist of no less than 3 models, right? So these are the actual figures, including the major hero. So you have to have, to be a party, you have to have at least 1 major hero and 2 minor heroes, but no more than 7. So you can't form an army. Potentially, this is sort of, I guess we what would we call the squad level. Yeah, I think squad level is about right, right? So 3 to 7. Some major or minor gods allow players to replace their minor heroes with certain special minions. Oh, I like that too. But those minions will always take up a slot that could be occupied by another minor hero. Oh, okay. So you can have, let's see, you can have minor heroes or minions, but let's see. So there's what slots do we get? How do we know how many slots? So you get 500 drachmas. It must have 3 models, no more than 7. You can replace minor heroes with special minions, but those heroes take up a slot that would be another minor hero. That's fine. All adventuring parties start at renown level 0, so I guess it's going to set up what we can hire. Each minor hero that you wish to add to the adventuring party costs money to recruit. The breakdown of their cost to hire as minor heroes as follows. All right, so I would expect Aphrodite to be the cheapest, but she's not. Right? What is Apollo? Apollo hero minor heroes get +2 combat when making ranged attacks. So interesting that I guess they maybe just the way this game is balanced. The idea is that what is she? What is Aphrodite gets +1 to resolve? I guess that's more valuable than ranged combat +2. I don't know. Hey, Sovereign, just joined the Discord, unable to message. So there's I don't know the best how to. So I'm trying to do something, and sorry for the anyone who's not interested in the Discord. What you have to do is you have to go to the welcome channel um, and there's a button at the bottom. If you read the rules and if you accept that, that should open it up. But let me know if you have issues because I am kind of test driving it and setting it up as I go. So I have no doubt that I've potentially set up incorrectly. But that's kind of the deal. I don't know how to force a message saying, "Hey, you must do this yet," but I'm not going to do that. But that's for the Discord. But sorry, didn't. And now back to Demigod. Sovereign, hit me up. You can send me a Discord message or hit me up off, and I'll get you sorted if you're having troubles because I can obviously give you the role that you need manually. All right, so we got minor heroes have costs. Um, I don't know how many slots. It doesn't say because it makes it seem like getting back to this that minor there's a certain amount of slots you have for different types of models, i.e., minor heroes or minions, but no, I'm not seeing a listing of it. Anyhow, okay. So we get minions. Let's go on to minions. Minions refer to any of the non-hero members of an adventuring party. An adventuring party can have as few as 1 or as many as 4 minions, depending on the size of the party. Okay. So it doesn't seem like there is actually a limit to how many minor heroes you can have, but maybe that's covered later. Each minion has a fixed stat line, which is listed on the chart on the next page. It looks like it's actually here. So, minions can be stuff like dryads, satyrs, nereids, archers, arbalists, slingers. So, right, all your kind of hireling type, or I know they're all combat, right? Because we're a war game, so you're not hiring, a locksmith. But we got some different ones. Ooh, you can get some hoplites. The seer has prophetic visions. Once per turn, as long as the seer is alive, the controlling player may reroll a single die. Ooh, that's kind of handy. I don't know what that would have that in. I don't know how I'd want to do that in a role playing game, but I do like the idea of hiring the seer and the seer doing something for you. I'm not sure what that something would be, but I could definitely, see that being a thing. So cool, cool. All right. Doesn't say if the surgeon. I imagine the chirurgeon um, has kind of a surgeon thing, but or rather, It can you can get some healing going on, but it doesn't say it specifically. Ian talking about the sovereign. Ian, because I did the integration with. So if you're a patron, there's a Discord integration, and that gave all those guys roles. So it's only if you come in using the invite. So again, hopefully not the sidetrack, but if you since the Discord is brand new as I'm recording this, it's kind of gonna be a thing. And I just set your permissions to adventure. I just gave you that role, which is basically so what you have to do is if you join the Discord, and there is a link in the show notes for this. Hopefully, at the way it's supposed to work, I just can't really see is you're supposed to end up at a page that basically just has the rules for the server, and at the bottom there's a button saying that you've read the rules. If you read the rules, you get a role, and that role should unlock everything else. Might be a bit, like I said, I might need to work on that a bit. But this is kind of why I'm just sort of putting the link out there and kind of throwing a couple places, and this way I'll kind of discover all these issues. Uh, so and the invite to the server. So ideally, the invite to the server they put is supposed to go to that channel, and you should see that. But maybe it's not super clear that you have to press the button. Anyway, new Discord bumps in the road. So I do dig the seer. I mean, I dig. Ooh, what's Silver Shield? Oh, it's got a. I'm not sure if that means something different, but something special. But I like the name. All right, where are we? Weapons. In Demigod, there are several different types of weapons your heroes might pick up or buy, each of which has their own damage modifiers and special rules. Damage modifiers are added or subtracted to the damage inflicted after the winner of the combat has been determined. All right, I'll get that part. So we have an axe. So these are two-handed axes, but they do +2 damage in hand-to-hand. These are not throwing axes, presumably. Bows don't modify any damage, and they're 24 inches in range. Heroes equipped with bows may not be equipped with shields, but may take a dagger at no extra cost. So you can't have both a shield and a bow, which makes sense. Now, can you carry a shield with you and then switch out at some point? Doesn't say. So you might need to commit, which I kind of like in terms of a war game anyway. That you're going to be a bowman, you kind of have to commit to it a bit. Daggers have a negative damage modifier, except in cases where a hero is carrying 2 of them or carrying as an accompaniment to a sword. Okay, so you can do this sort of dual wielding type dealio. If a hero is carrying 2 daggers, they function similarly to a sword and have no modifiers in close combat. If a hero is carrying a dagger as a secondary weapon to a sword, it grants a +1 damage modifier. That's kind of an interesting way to put it. So you're in combat, you've got a sword. If you have a dagger, the dagger essentially helps your sword do more damage, but you don't get a second attack. You don't get anything. It's just like, oh yeah, now you're a bit more effective. Basically, your combat overall is slightly more effective in terms of damage, but we're not doing any kind of secondary rolls, which is kind of a nice way to handle it, actually. If you wanted to do a really quick and easy dual wielding type thing. And the thing is, that's kind of nice about this. I got to say that I like. So again, veering into what can I take from this and potentially add to my own systems? If you're dual wielding with a dagger, you get +1 to your damage, and that would be irrespective of your strength. So you could have horrible strength or maybe a 0 strength. Throw a dagger in there, you can act like basically it essentially bumps you up a strength category. Whatever you're at, it bumps you up 1. If you're at +2 strength, you go up to +3 essentially in terms of just damage. Right? We're not talking about to hit, just damage. But it also is a nice mirror for shields, adding a +1 to defense, your armor class. So now you have a really easy, well, do I want to go sword and board or do I want to go, 2 weapon? Now, of course, the one thing we don't know is, well, how do two-handed weapons fit into this mix? But just in terms of it's very quick, very easy, it's flat, you're not worrying about a whole bunch of stuff. Just like, oh yeah, you just do 1 more damage if you get the dagger, if you're using the dagger secondarily with your sword. I think that's really cool. Gastrophetes, an ancient precursor of the medieval crossbow, the Gastrophetes has a +2 damage modifier and a maximum range of 30 inches. Additionally, any model armed with a Gastrophetes must spend 1 action reloaded after it's been fired. It starts the game loaded. I'd love to see what one of those looks like. I wonder how it compares to the heavy kind of medieval crossbows. We don't know how long our turns are yet, so I'm wondering, is it a minute, 30 seconds? But I guess it doesn't really matter too much. I just love to know how fast those things actually load. Javelins have a +1 damage modifier and a range of 6 inches. Each successful ranged attack with a javelin decreases the enemy's move and speed by 1 for the rest of the turn. Oh, that's pretty cool. So you can kind of pin them down in a sense. I mean, it, or you could see it visually as them being so pin cushioned with javelins that they can barely move, or it could be that it's just the impacts are just pushing them back, kind of thing. Either way, it's works. Slings get +1 damage, and they have an 18-inch range, so further than javelins, obviously not as far as the crossbow thing, and not as far as bows. Shields do not provide damage bonuses. Instead, they give bonuses to the armor skill. A hero armed with a sword or spear and a shield gets a +1 in their armor and -1 of their speed. All right, well, that works out easy peasy. And two-handed weapons, the axe, the bow, or the gastrophetus cannot use a shield. Oh yeah, we didn't look at the axe. Ryan Smith says gastrophetus, the Greek god of trapped wind. Might be that. Might be that. Okay, so two-handers like the axe give you +2 damage. And then your spears are considered unwieldy when not used in a hoplite phalanx. Any model equipped with a spear does not receive and does not confer any bonuses for multiple combats. However, a spear increases the pushback distance from 1 inch to 3 inches. Okay. So spears, that's kind of an interesting way too. You don't get any bonuses or anything like that, but you can push back. Now we don't know what some of these things mean yet, like pushback, but I think we can kind of guess. And swords, no modifiers. They're your basic weapon. Now we're setting up the table. I'm not going to worry too much about setting up the table, but we can see here we're putting kind of a grid. Basically, we're looking at a 3 foot by 3 foot table, which they dividing up into these grid points. You have your major monster in the middle of the table, minor monsters on the corners, in kind of these corners of the inner square, if you will, or four square. And then let's see, if you're in a standard quest, the player should set up terrain in the following manner. You divide into quarters, then into 4 and more quarters, placing one piece of terrain somewhere in each 9-inch quarter of the board. So I guess you've got quarters and then quarters, right? Once terrain has been placed, deploy the major monster in the center of the table and one minor monster in each quarter of the table, assuming there are enough minor monsters to do so. I think it makes sense. All right. After the board has been seeded with monsters and terrain, players determine which are the two player sides where they deploy their adventuring parties and which are the two neutral sides. So I guess we're talking about sides of the table. So we might say here's a player side and a player side, and then the other two sides would be, I don't know how you deal with the corners if they match both. In any case, whatever you have, two sides, two sides. Once players have marked sides, they place loot. The number of loot tokens is decided in the following way: add up all the monsters on the board, divide that number in half, and add 4, rounding down. Each player should take half the loot tokens. All right, add up all the monsters on the table. Are we adding just the number of them, or what? Each player should take half the loot tokens and take turns place them on the table. Loot tokens should be placed at least 6 inches from any table edge and at least 9 inches from any other loot token. All right, so you can't pile up loot into some giant cache. You got to spread them around. I'm not sure about what they mean about add up all the monsters, because we only have, right? They say, well, let's see, they're major monsters, minor monsters. It's got to be the value, right? There's got to be some kind of hit die or some valuation. Otherwise, you got 5. You divide that by 4, you wouldn't get very far. Or you divide it in half and add 4. So I guess, well, that would be what, 5 divided by 2, 2.5, round down to 2, add 4, you get 6. But I imagine it's supposed to be more variable, presumably based on how many, either maybe it's just the number of monsters, you can just add more, or on the difficulty of the monsters, maybe. I don't know. And I don't know. We'll have to see what the loots are. All right. Okay. So we roll on. So after the board's been set up, you roll off. Each player places all their models at once within 9 inches of the table edge in any way they choose. So you get some flexibility how you can line up. Now we get into the kind of how the turns work. Demigods divided into turns. Each turn, players can move their models in their adventuring party, engage in combat, and call down boons from their patron gods or goddesses. I definitely like. Thank you, Brian Smith, with the the Latin translations for those numbers. I do always like to try to figure out when I see the Latin numbers, like at the. I don't think they do it on movies anymore. That they'll put the old Latin numbers on a movie, or on a I don't know, on a cornerstone of a building. I do like to try to break it down, but I'm can't say I'm expert at it. No, Brian Smith. No, you're accurate. Your translation was definitely not accurate. Started with six. Then I don't know what you're adding up there. VXMII. So what? M is 1,000 minus 15. No, I don't even know how you get to VXM. MXXIII at least makes some sense. Initiative is a 3d6 roll. The player scored highest is the primary player and then goes first in each of the turn's phases. So we get phases here. So the hero phase. In the hero phase, the primary player activates their major hero first. The secondary player then does the same. Primary player then chooses one of their minor heroes. So then all the heroes basically go. And then the minions go. So I guess if you have a special minion, you can't it I guess it affects you in terms of the phases because they'll go after all the heroes or minor heroes. Once the hero phase is complete, the turn moves to the minion phase, which is very similar. If either player has non-hero models in their adventuring party, they may activate them now following the primary and secondary initiative established in the hero phase. Each player activates one model at a time, then passes off control to the next player until all non-hero models have been activated. All right. As with the hero phase, if a player has no non-hero models on the table, they may not activate models in space. That's fine. You gotta have the type of figure, model, character to move it. And then after those two are done, then the monsters go. Now, when you're activating something, what do? It may perform two actions, one of which has to be movement. Oh, unless it's got a special rule. So you have to move. You gotta move. And the other action can be another move. You could fight, you can shoot, you can call down a boon, you can pick up some loot, or you can command another model. Interesting. The having to move is kind of fascinating. I suppose it doesn't mean you have to move. I guess. I mean, I guess moving. I'm trying to think about because you could move in like a little circle. Do you have to leave your quadrant? You have to move a certain amount of inches. Is there any minimum movement? Could you just move a little bit? But you have to move. So you can't. I guess the big thing is maybe is um you can't swap their primary move for something else. You can't shoot twice, fight twice, call down two, do anything like that. So maybe you could move and choose not to move, but you don't get anything else, right? There's no like, oh, double attack because I didn't move. It's like, yeah, maybe you moved zero, but that was a move. Model can perform these actions in any order. It can move, then fight, call down a boon, then move, pick up loot, and then move, or move and then command another model. That's fine. Let's see. Normally, major and minor heroes are activated one at a time during the hero phase. However, a player may command a single minion in addition to the hero they're choosing to activate. Okay. Only minions that are within 3 inches of a hero prior to movement can be commanded. A player cannot move a hero of Hades, then command a skeleton that was not within 3 inches before the hero move, for example. I see. So they have to be within 3 inches when you command them. Once the minion activates, it must take all of its actions before the hero is allowed to act again. A player could activate the hero of Hades, who in turn could issue commands to a skeleton. The skeleton would then have to move and perform its other action before the hero of Hades could act again. So presumably, the only thing the hero of Hades could do after they've commanded the unit, right, is to move. That's another nice idea that if you could have a minion that you could then like your hireling would because right now I think the way I run it by default, I give the hirelings their own initiative. But maybe that's a good idea is to give allow the if I was to because in my game characters did not have hirelings through themselves really they were I allowed them to employ hirelings kind of as a group, but they were essentially a company and they were hiring hirelings as a company, which is fine. But I could see if I was going to, and maybe another game I say I might go back to heroes having specific hirelings attached to them, which I also enjoy for different reasons. In that case, I could see that being a neat thing that you could do as your hero is telling your minion to do something. Maybe instead of, but maybe I might have it be, let's say it's like a neat thing. Like, you always think about, or we often go about like, how can we make fighters, for example, better? But it might be interesting if you gave a fighter the ability that they can as a freebie tell their minion to do something, whereas other classes need to spend their action essentially to tell their minion to do something. All right. So now movement. Anytime a model takes both of its actions during its activation, one must be a move, though there are exceptions. Both move actions may be up to a number of inches noted in that model's move stat. Okay. So it can be no more than the model's move, but how minimum can it be? For example, a minor hero of Apollo makes a move action as their first turn, moving 6 inches. If the controlling player wanted to move that minor hero again, the second move action would also allow them to move 6 inches. Okay, that's fine. But I'm curious as to, can they just not move? Obstructed ground, rough terrain. We kind of get that. I'm not going to go into it. Anytime model moves into base to base contact, we're using rulers, not grids, so you have to get base to base. It's considered to be in combat. And then we go into the combat sequence. In combat, anytime a model moves within 1 inch of an enemy model that is currently free to move, i.e., it's not in combat, that enemy model may choose to force combat. Okay, so you can't run up and just be so close but not touching the enemy model. If you're about within an inch, they can jump out at you, presuming they're not already in combat. Why would you want to move off the board? But I suppose if you did, it's out of the game. I guess if you needed to escape or something, if you can jump, you can fall. Still, there's no word on if you actually. So you have to use a move, but I still don't see where it says, do you have to move? So I don't know whether it's like, I feel like it's kind of up in the air right now if you're allowed to. I mean, I think as written, you're allowed to move zero, but you just use up your move. But I wonder if the intent is that you have to be moving around. I'd be down with either one. Obviously, having not played, I don't know if there's a potential balance issue one way or the other, but I'd feel okay either way. Either way. During combat, both okay. So now we're into combat phase. Both models roll 3d6 and add specific stats based on whether they are attacking or defending. Right? We had that combat stat. You had some weapons, had some different things. A couple of the depending on your patron, you might have a bonus. Blah blah blah. Let's see if defending plus any additional modifiers from equipment. If attacking, the model adds its combat stats. If defending, the model adds its armor stat. All right. So everything is just you're going to roll 3d6 and modify it via your armor if you're defending, your attack stuff if you're attacking. The attacker score beats the defender score. The defender takes damage. Any other result is a win for the defender. All right. Easy peasy. To determine damage, subtract the defender's score from the attacker score plus or minus any damage modifiers. If damage was caused, this amount is subtracted from the defender's health stat. So basically, it's a what do we call it? An opposed roll, and the margin. If the attacker wins, the margin of however much they won by plus any damage bonus they have is damage to the defender, which makes it pretty easy, right? We're just gonna roll some dice, compare numbers, do some little simple addition or subtraction, or addition and subtraction, I suppose, and then take damage. And we have an example: a minor hero of Ares, armed with an axe, which is +3 combat. I guess overall is +3 combat. Attacks an archer who has +2 armor. The minor hero rolls a 14, to which they add their combat stat for a total of 17. The archer rolls a 7 plus their armor stat for a total of 9. Since the minor hero score beats the archer score, the minor hero wins combat and deals a total of 10 damage, which is 8 plus 2 because of the axe, which is immediately subtracted from the archer's health. Right? Super simple. Once a winner has been determined, one of two things happens. If the winner is the attacker, they can decide to either remain in combat or push back the defender 1 inch. If the winner is the defender, the attacker must roll 3d6 and beat the defender's resolve score or be pushed back 1 inch, also known as an opposed test, right? So same as combat. Any pushback moves must be directly away from the opposing model, halting if the model being pushed back encounters a wall or other barrier. Pushback moves are unaffected by rough terrain. Okay, so we saw earlier that you have this long spear, and the one thing you get out of having a long spear is you get to push them back further. I almost feel like this isn't strong enough, though. Again, haven't played, haven't bounced it. I really like the idea of the pushback. I kind of like the idea that if you just could potentially, if they want to, you could get pushed back. Um, and that's kind of a thing, which makes those spearmen maybe even more. If you have the long spears, even more sort of formidable because it's like not only are you getting pushed back, but you're getting pushed back another another 2 inches. So three times or whatever. Yeah, 3 times more than with just a normal weapon. Frederick says Titans just want to clash. Of course they do. Of course they do. If the combat was a tie, neither model is moved and they remain in combat. Makes sense. Multiple combats. If a model ends up in base to base contact with 2 or more enemy models at the same time, this is known as a multiple combat. When a model is in combat with multiple opponents, it must first nominate which opposing model it is targeting. Combat is carried out as normal with the following modifier: +1 combat for every friendly model also in combat with the target and not in combat with another model. Note, there can be multiple modifiers, so model A may have +2, while model B might have +1. Let's see. However, if both models have the same modifier, they cancel out, and both models fight at +0. Brian Smith says they could make a lasers and feelings hack that's swords and sandals, but it's already exists. I don't know if it has, but it's a good one. You're either swords or your sandals. Yeah, could be. Anytime a model takes damage, the amount of damage is subtracted from their health. If a model's health reaches 0, they've been killed and removed from the table. Models that reach 0 health during campaign games are considered only out of the current game. So, you can bring back your guys, your minor heroes, presumably minions or toast, but I don't know. We'll see. Wounded, let's say wounded models. When a model is reduced to 4 or less, they're considered wounded, regardless of their starting health. Wounded models may only take 1 action per turn. This action can be any of the normal actions. It does not need to be movement. Wounded figures also suffer a -2 to all dice rolls while they remain wounded. Oh, so you don't want to get wounded. Frederick says that the ability to push out can be so abused by the evil GM. Oh yeah, it totally could. But then I feel like there would be a good one. It would be really cool if there were 2 things. Because I like the idea of that push. If you have the long spear, you could push something out and hold them out. What would be the inverse of that? If because people always like to get into daggers and things. And could you move in? Could you get inside the guard? So if you were fighting somebody with a dagger, is there something like if because if you're fighting just with daggers, I guess if you have 2 daggers, it's kind of normal. But anyway, if you were fighting with a dagger, could there be a move of like if you lose the attacker, they can get inside your guard, and then maybe there's some little modifier there. Like I'd love to, it'd be interesting to look at because I'd love to think about some of these things in a way that's not super rules heavy. I don't want to get super crunchy, but it'd be nice to have almost a status of you're inside their guard, which means maybe you get +1, maybe you get plus, just like another +1, +1 to hit. They're -1 to hit if they're using any weapon other than like a dagger or something similar. You can't get inside the guard of somebody with a dagger, but you can of somebody with a larger weapon. It would be kind of a neat sort of play, right? You get inside that you're so imagine you're the spearman versus the dagger guy, right? So you're the spearman. If you beat the dagger, you can keep pushing that dagger guy off, and he literally can't get to you because he can't attack. 'Cause you've got reach, can't get it. But if he's able to get inside, then he can move inside, and then he's got a little bit of advantage. But it's happening on the other person's attacks. It's when the spearman's defending, they're able to push back, and when the dagger's defending, they can kind of slip inside the guard. So it's kind of a neat. I gotta mess around with it more, but it feels like a kind of neat idea. Ian says, "Is this resolved simultaneously? Could I have 5 spear guys push someone 15 inches?" No, I don't. I don't think so. I don't think that's how it would work. But you do get bonuses for having extra kind of allies in. But no, you don't stack it. Though it was funny playing in chainmail. So playing in Daniel, aka Bandit Keeps chainmail game, there was a situation in which one of the heroes, one of the guys on the players, and he was just playing like he was going lone wolf, and he ran into some enemies. And the way it was working was he was winning these things, and then it was always you could push them back and move into their space, and he ended up pushing them back like like all the way across the battlefield because he just went on this roll of like, oh, you could do this and then do this again, do this again, do this again, and he just kind of it was funny because it was like this one guy charging up and just all these enemies fleeing before him, and it horizontally sort of across the side of the battlefield. It was cool and it was effective. And it was funny. Alrighty. Let's see. Ranged attacks. So we did wounded models. Now critical hits. When a model makes a ranged or hand-to-hand attack and rolls a natural 18, 3 6s without stats. I mean without any bonuses. So it's not gonna happen very often. That's a critical hit. In hand-to-hand combat, they automatically win, no matter what doesn't matter what the other person rolled. And then with ranged attacks, a critical hit automatically strikes the target. In both cases, a critical hit deals an extra 5 damage and ignores any negative modifiers. For example, minor hero of Ares with an axe rolls a natural 18 plus their combat stat of 4 against a hero of Hephaestus who rolls a 16 plus his armor stat of 4. The minor hero of Ares deals 9 damage to the minor hero of Hephaestus, 2 points of base damage, plus 2 for wielding an axe, plus 5 because of critical hit. So you still can get some protection from a crit if you rolled fairly well. But if you roll poorly, obviously, that's just going to be bad regardless. And then another 5 on top of it just makes it even worse. So ranged attacks now. A model equipped with a bow, sling, gastrophetes, or a set of javelins may make up to 1 ranged attack per activation. For attempting a ranged attack, the controlling player should check that the target is both in range and in line of sight, right? So you're using your rulers to look and see, okay, can they see each other? Are they close enough? Once the controlling player is confirmed range and line of sight, range attacks are handled in a very similar way to regular combat. Both the shooter and the target roll 3d6, with the shooter adding their combat stat and the target adding their speed stat, and any modifiers for intervening models or terrain. If the shooter has the higher score, the shot is a hit. Any other result counts as a miss. Damage is calculated by adding any damage modifiers to the remainder of the previous step, then subtracting the target's armor value. If the result is a positive number, the target receives that much health damage. If the result is 0 or a negative number, no damage is caused. For example, minor hero of Athena, who has combat +3, fires a bow at a hellhound, speed of +2. The hellhound is in the open and there are no other modifiers. The minor hero rolls a 10, as their combat of 3 for 13. A hellhound rolls a 7, adds its speed of 2 for a 9. 13 minus 9 means that there are 5 potential points of damage. Since the hellhound has no armor value, it takes all 5 points, leaving it with 3 health points left. So kind of the neat thing here is you're rolling against their speed. So your armor in this case, it's kind of clever. I feel like, because your armor doesn't help you avoid the blow. This part is not being abstracted. It's just your speed. And if you're wearing heavy armor, I think you lose at least 1 speed. You're wearing, or basically the shield. I don't know, forget whatever you're wearing. I think at least at a certain point affects your speed. So you lose some of that. At the same time, you'd still get the benefits of your armor on a hit. So it's still useful. You still feel good wearing that heavy armor. But it's kind of just neat how they just track it a little bit differently, right? They could have done it. They could have done with just kind of rolling on it and just having your speed and armor kind of just stacked, but they don't. Like you have the hit, and then the damage modifiers, if any, come in, and then your armor comes in. But I think what it means is that your speed, you don't get to. I'm guessing with the sort of the bell curve of your 3d6 type thing, it probably works a little bit differently. But it's a nice clean little system. Range attack modifiers are all expressed as bonuses or penalties to the target's speed, and we get a table for that with some intervening. So we get some modifiers here. You got terrain in the way, light cover, heavy cover. If you're doing a quick shot, so if you move before, you had previously moved. That's kind of an important one. If you're going to be firing your bow, you probably want to fire your bow, then move on that turn. And the turn before, you probably want to fire, then move, then fire. So you want to basically be stationary before on the turn. You want to be ending your turn stationary before you're firing. And then there's a bonus if the target's large. All right, divine favor. I'm definitely interested in this one. At renown level 1, and for every level after, and we start at renown 0, so I'm guessing this is their kind of leveling system. You're gaining renown. But they haven't told us how you're gaining it, but I'm guessing it's by winning these battles. party, let's say the adventuring party's major hero gains a divine favor point, representing the favor of their divine patron. Divine favor points can be used in one of two ways: to petition their patrons for boons, or once per game to increase or decrease one of the major hero's dice rolls by one per divine favor point spent. So if you really need to kill something or do something, and you got some divine favor stocked up, you can add it up, or you can go for a boon. Certain boons can be resisted. And we got that through. Let's see, through their journeys, heroes will have many and various tests they will have to face. These will take two forms: direct and opposed tests. Direct tests are always rolled against a 14. That is, the player rolls a 3d6 plus their applicable bonuses, attempting to beat 14. Opposed tests, on the other hand, are rolled against 10 plus the opposing hero's resolve bonus plus any other applicable bonuses. Then we have another example, but I think we get it, right? So you have a direct test, you're just rolling your stuff against 14. If it's a opposed test, you're rolling against some other hero's stuff. Now, boons. So I really liked before, if you missed it, the top, when you're creating your hero, either your major hero, your minor hero, you decide to patronize a god or goddess, and that divine personage gives you a mechanical bonus to one of your attributes. That's one thing we have, and I like that. I said when we went through that, I like that part a lot. So now here's this other part. So depending on which god you patronize, you have these different kind of special boons you can use. So if you're Zeus, which would be a major, you'd be a major hero, you get the boon of shapeshift. And then there's a note here: the target may not be targeted by either the monsters or the opposing adventure party, but not both for the remainder of the turn. I see. So it's kind of like it's very temporary in this case. But it means that for that turn, once you've shapeshifted, like you become a dove or a bull or something, like you're not recognizable. You've kind of gone incognito, or in maybe another way, it's kind of invisible. You could also potentially use a bolt of vengeance, a storm of eagles. Those are the Zeus ones. Poseidon, you've got earthquake. Let's see, you can have an enemy be swallowed by the earth. Ryan Smith says Zeus has major resting boon face. Yeah, I suppose that's one way to look at it. Tsunamis, also Poseidon, Hades. What does that mean? Rejected by the underworld. Once per game, when a hero's health reaches 0, they immediately stand back up with 1 hit point per point of divine favor spent. Oh, that's kind of a cool one. Like, not so fast. I've been rejected by the underworld. Guard of the Dead or Wither. Those are cool. So I guess only the major gods give out boons like that. So sorry, Athena, you don't not giving out any boons. Terrence says nobody attack it. It's just a random golden shower. Yeah, but how would one attack a golden shower anyway? You might be worried about the ramifications of getting too close to a golden shower. Just, not for nothing. Collecting loot. If a model is in contact with a loot token, they may use an action to pick it up. No model may pick up a loot token if there's an enemy model, either a monster or a member of a rival adventuring party within 1 inch of it. Once a loot token has been picked up, it moves with the model that picked it up. Models may only carry 1 loot token at a time. Any model carrying a loot token counts as encumbered. Their move is halved, and their combat speed are -1 while they're carrying the token. However, any model carrying a loot token may spend one of their actions to drop it. If a model is killed while carrying a loot token, the token remains where the model was killed. If a model moves off the board while carrying a loot token, the loot has been secured for the owning player's adventuring party. All right, so there's a reason to move off the board. That's how you secure loot. The model may not return to the game once it's moved off the board. Treasure has no particular use during the game. The members of an adventuring party are far too concerned with staying alive to examine any loot they've picked up. See the next chapter for more details on how to deal with loot. So you can't use loot in the moment, but you're picking it up for later. Nope, Brian Smith, I don't think there's any guns. I don't think there's any guns here. All right, so monster actions. So remember, this can be played solo, which is cool. So you can there's basically a looks like a little flow chart, sort of decision tree here for monsters. Check if the monster's in combat. Is there a model within line of sight, basically a movement? And what do you do if not? And then there's a d6 roll you can roll for moving the monster, including, which is kind of cool, the initiative player's choice or the non-initiative player's choice. So if you're playing a We're playing with a rival. You're playing two players as rivals. You could kind of, on depending on what's rolled, potentially the monster could be kind of zigzagging back and forth towards the other your opposing player pieces, which is kind of fun, right? So, it's interested in the shotgun and sandal subgenre. Wouldn't that be like Gamora or something? Was what I think of immediately. And then ending the game. Games of Demigod can end in one of several games. If 8 turns have elapsed, the quest objective is completed, the major monster has been killed, or in the event that neither player has any models left on the board. That would be a sad one. So you got 8 turns max. And then we get to the hero's journey. And I still would just request, please, you could make these the same size as the main text with these list items. There's no reason to be saving space with a tiny list type. It's kind of my only thing I'm kind of I think could what I would say needs improvement in terms of layout. Everything else is laid out very fine and dandy. I just don't need the tiny size there. While it's perfectly possible to play one-off games with Demigod, right? You're supposed to be kind of playing campaigns, injury and death. I think we can kind of skip that. I mean, not that it's not important. It's just, I guess, maybe not important. Not so important to me. Let's see for when. So, kind of in between, I guess, in between adventures, or I guess if they've been knocked out and you're playing in a campaign game, they're going to roll a d6 to see whether they're out. On a 1, they're killed. On a 2, they're too wounded to go on the next quest, but I guess they're still available. And then otherwise, they recover. And then for major and minor heroes, if they get knocked out, you roll on a d6, and you've got some different injuries. On a 1, you're dead. On a 6, you're fully recovered, and everything else is kind of in between. Disabled, grievously wounded, left for dead, just a scratch, you're full recovery. I like that left for dead is actually sort of on the more positive side of the ledger. So obviously, dead, right? We get dead. Uh, Disabled, they've caught an injury that will be with them for the rest of their lives, and we're going to see a lasting injuries table. If they're grievously wounded, they need a surgeon or time to recover. If they were left for dead, they're so badly hurt that they thought they were dead, but through sheer force of will, the hero overcomes and makes it back to the party. They're not before being picked clean by vagabonds and ne'er-do-wells. The hero loses all the items they were carrying, but due to the trials and dangers they overcame, they gain a +1 in one of their choice. So that's nice. So they're going to lose everything they're carrying, but they do get a little bonus. Just a scratch. So this one, interesting, like Left for Dead is better than just a scratch. Because in just a scratch, they lose all the items they were carrying. Is that the same as right? Yeah, they both lose all the items they're carrying, but they're don't get a bonus. And then full recovery, yep, they're good. If you get a lasting injury, we've got another. I'm not sure why this is on another page. I feel like that might be a mistake because this table will easily fit over here. What's this thing at the top? Oh, lasting injuries. Any injury that causes a penalty to one of the hero stats causes a straight decrease. That is, if a hero with a base combat of +4 receives a crushed arm, their combat is now +3. That makes sense. Terrence calls this the Olympic apocalyptic genre. I wouldn't say it's apocalyptic. You're just doing heroic things in the age of heroes. So for your injuries, is now we're doing a 3d6 roll, and they could be lost toes, shattered legs, the shakes, lingering weakness, not all there, old wounds, mumbler, or took an eye out. You don't want to take an eye out. I'm going to kind of skip over what these mean, but they're not good. If a hero receives enough lasting injuries that any of their stats would drop to 0, they're considered retired. This is your major hero. They take 200 drachma from the party's treasury as retirement insurance. I'm taking my money and I'm out. Otherwise, they take their initial recruitment cost. All right. So you're investing in these guys, and if they die or they retire, rather, you lose the coin. Brian Smith says the mumbler reminds me of the close talker from Seinfeld. Yes, and I'll just read that one since you brought it up. The hero has received an injury to the jaw that has impacted their ability to speak. As such, the gods are never quite sure what they're asking for. All boons now cost double the divine favor points to petition for. You can only get that injury once. And here we have a sample quest, which I'm not going to go through, but we've got a skeleton, a ghoul, and a wraith. The wraiths can cast a petrify spell, and then their claws are treated as daggers for combat. So really easy. I mean, it's in terms of it's just a single. I mean, I don't even know if this is what page size is supposed to be. It's really very easy to put together a scenario here. The Orphean journey, a great hero has died and it's up to your party to return them to the land of the living. But the spirits of the dead do not rest easy, and once woken from their restless sleep, they do not take too kindly to being disturbed. So that's a nice little hook. The setup, and it's the same as when you're setting it up initially. There's no major monster. Instead, you roll 3d6 and add 4 to each die. The first d6 is the number of skeletons on the board. The second d6 is the number of ghouls on the board, and the third d6 is the number of wraiths on the board. Each. The profiles for each are below. Okay, so you can definitely have a bunches and bunches of monsters, and not just the major and minor ones that were on that diagram. Once the monster has been deployed, deploy your adventuring party as normal, except for the major hero. They are deployed in the center of the board. Oof. All right. So they're already showing how you can kind of modify the rules. No major monster on the board, just a bunch of these smaller monsters, though. I don't know. Those wraiths seem pretty nasty. Ah, yes. Terrence, the spirits are woke now. Well, these ones are definitely woke. Now we have a special rule. The major hero does not attack and cannot move on their own. Instead, once a friendly model makes base contact with the major hero, the major hero will follow that model until it is slain or moves off the board. Okay, interesting. So basically that is like your hero. The major hero is basically the one who's died. So it's going to follow you. So you have to go in, tag that hero, and then pull them out. Right? That's pretty cool. It's a neat little setup. And then the victory conditions, the adventure party must get the major hero off their deployment board edge for the end of 8 turns to be considered the victor. So remember, you start off on one edge of the board. You gotta get the hero back. So you gotta go in, center of the board, touch the hero, then pull them out. Obviously, any unit that's touching the hero, if they get killed, the hero's just gonna stay there. Someone else will have to come and touch it. Follow the leader until you get off the board. Now we finally covered renown. Over the course of the journey, the adventuring party's achievements will earn them renown all throughout Greece. As the party gains more renown, they are able to hire more experienced companions, outfit a camp, and even convince other heroes such as Heracles, Jason, Theseus, and Perseus to join them. During each quest, the following achievements will earn the party renown. Basically, have some experience lists. If they call a boon successfully, they get 10 experience. For each minion they take out, 40 experience. For each minor monster, 60. For each enemy minor hero, 80. For each major hero enemies, 160. And for each major monster, 200. And then let's see. So levels of renown are graduated. There's from 0 to 1, it's 100 experience. From 1 to 2, it's 200, and so on. Okay, so if you take out a major monster, you can go all the way up to 200, presumably. I mean, to level 2. Every hero begins their journey at level 0 and receives perks at certain renown levels as outlined below. So at level 1, you gain divine favor. Level 2, let's see. The party has adventured long enough that this has become their permanent profession, and they can decide to outfit a camp. I bet you there's an advantage to that. At level 6, you get a kind of a buff to your minor heroes and minions. At level 8, you can hire a hero of legend. This was your Jason, Heracles, Theseus, whatever. And then finally, at level 12, the hero graduates to become a minor god on Olympus. And then we have some feats of heroism. As the major and minor heroes of the adventuring party go about their journeys, they will complete a number of heroic acts that will increase not only the adventuring party's renown, but also their prowess. So we have some, what they call a monster slayer, looter, survivor. You could gain some heroic resolve by doing different things. So looter, for example, you gain 1 speed for every 2 loot tokens that the hero carries off the board. So that's kind of cool. So you could designate someone as your loot runner, and they'll get better. They'll get faster. All right. Now your loot. You can get some scrolls, magic items, some armor, or some legendary items, or 400 drachma. Oh, I guess you can get drachma and stuff, or 400. Seems like I think I'd rather like the legendary items rather than 400 drachma. But I guess since you're remember this is kind of a war game, so you're spending you have a budget to spend to build out your adventuring party. I suppose the drachmas actually are pretty worthwhile to have. So we have some potions, ambrosia, nectar of strength, Greek fire, Dionysian wine, Stygian water, or Lethean water with some costs. And then scrolls, stuff like curse, fly, call storm, earth and grass, plague of insects, strike dead, so on and so forth. And magic items, we got girdles of strength, amphoras of healing, amulets of Apollo, chitons of arrow turning. And we've got some celestial weapons and armor. Always love celestial stuff. And then legendary items, Poseidon's pearl, the Aegis, Maya's sandals, Anaklusmos. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. Harmonia's necklace, or the helm of darkness. And then you got you can spend stuff. You can hire new minions, hire new minor heroes, and then buy things. Bronze armor's 400 drachmas. And then we've got some heroes of legend. Achilles costs 1,100 drachma. Heracles only costs 625. God, seems cheap for Heracles. Perseus is 1,000. So Heracles does come with linothorax and a celestial bronze sword. Atalanta comes with leather armor, a bow, a dagger, and she's an unparalleled hunter. She receives +1 combat when making ranged attacks. That's cool. I like it. I like these legendary heroes. That's another thing that'd be kind of cool in the game, in your game, if you had sort of heroes you could kind of bring out almost a retirement. It'd be if you were building kind of a domain game with some kind of dynastic features that you could spend some XP to pull somebody in for like one last time, or like one, we need you, like you're calling on the big leagues, send somebody down to help out. Kind of cool. Odysseus is determined to get home. Makes sense. Theseus also has linothorax. I'm not familiar with linothorax. I'm guessing it's some kind of armor. And then we have establishing a camp with some locations that have some advantages. So temples, treasuries, breweries, libraries, crypts, and armories. And each one has an advantage for you. So it's like you are getting your kind of little domain action, and then you can add some renovations, including carrier pigeons, a smithy, or these. Oh, those are locations and renovations. Surgeon's quarters or potion maker stall. And then we have some quests. Ooh, the Minotaur's maze. Oh, this is cool. So you can kind of you literally draw in the labyrinth on your board. Garden of Statues with Medusa, the Island of the Cyclops, the Boar Hunt, the Colchian Fleece, Centauramachy, and then we have an appendix of spells. We have an appendix of bestiary, another optional quest, and then the hero sheet. And then the back of the book. What does the back say? From Herc the Zero to Hercules the Hero. Ever wonder how Hercules got his start? Or Achilles? Demigod lets you lead your own band of heroes through the same trials and tribulations on their way to become full-fledged gods. The core book includes 6 different quests inspired by Greek mythology: slay Medusa or the Minotaur, save the lovely Hippodamia from the Thessalian centaurs, and more. Rules for playing demigods, patroned by Zeus, Hades, or Poseidon, as well as boons for each. The ability to bring in minor demigods of Athena, Ares, Dionysus, all of the other Greek gods of Greek mythology. A party-focused renown system so that achievements are shared between the party and not just focused on 1 or 2 individual models. And a growth system that focuses on actual deeds and not experience points. The journey to godhood awaits. Well, very cool stuff. Now, this was not my huge. Obviously, this is a war game. In essence, not a role-playing game. Well, I suppose it's a war game with role-playing. There's definitely role-playing elements in there. I really dig it. Now, I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to play it. I don't have a 3-foot by 3-foot table. Well, I suppose I do it. If I go to Studio B, I have access to a card table. card table, I presume, is about 3 by 3, maybe, unless I was playing on the floor. But as kind of a resource, I just think there's some really kind of neat things here. Potentially, I like some of the ideas. I like the kind of. I really like the way that the divine figures are mechanized and enmeshed in what you're doing. Picking your patron god isn't just a backstory kind of flavor thing. Is it really affects the things you can do. Your character reflects your character mechanically. It reflects the boons that you can do. I like that a lot. And I'd love to take it further and see, like, do the gods demand you do particular things or act in certain ways? Kind of like, and almost like, well, is there sort of again, thinking more in a role playing, I was like, is there kind of a little bit, could we kind of drill in that a little bit more in terms of alignmenty stuff, or even working in terms of a role playing game? Like, I always think about, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the importance of making your, not only kind of your rightness of action, but also in making the proper obeisances and doing the things like the sacrifices and all the things that they want done, your prayers and all that. Could you work these together in a really interesting way? I was like reading different combat rules. Like I said, I feel like they come at them and do something a little bit different. I like the idea of the pushback for the spear, for the long spear. The I was thinking about, is there an opposing one for the dagger? I like the way the two-handed, the two weapon fighting worked. Just kind of clever and simple, and I could see just adding that in because it seems like a really neat, just quick little add. Makes sense. It really just gives that, if a shield adds a +1 to your armor class, then dual wielding with a shorter weapon adds a +1 to your damage. Like, that's kind of really, really just simple. And if you wanted to change it to a +1 to attack, I wouldn't fight you on that either. But I really just like that. It makes a nice mirror of each other. Um, Really cool, and it's a great setting. I love kind of Bronze Age swords and sandals. Very neat stuff. Um, this one, it's on itch. I don't have itch in front of me. I don't know how much it costs. I could I could probably check it out. All right, let me just see. Let me see. But please, if this interests you, I know that the author was, when I mentioned that I might be looking at it, I just said, like, "Oh, this sounds really cool. I'd like to look at it. Can you send me the itch thing?" I know he was super excited because really he's trying to get more eyeballs on it. So hopefully this will do that. It's name your own price. Oh no, that's my thing. No, hold on a minute. That I loaded a link for my thing. No, not my thing. His thing. For their thing. Sorry about that. Let's see. Here we go. Their thing on itch is, let's see, I can't see. Well, they got a couple different options. It looks like it's kind of, all right. So it's $20 on itch, but I know if you go to +1 games, I hope they don't mind me spreading the word. If you go to +1 games and you look and you search for Demigod, if you go to the +1 games Discord server, you search for Demigod, he's got it. He just put it up there to download. But if you go through itch, if you want to support them monetarily, if you go through itch, you can buy it on itch. If you go through, you go grab it off of +1 games. I don't know how long it's going to be there. So don't, whoops, there's my Discord thing set up. Don't count on that being up forever, but for now, that's there. But thanks so much, folks, who hung in there with Demigod. I know it's not, like I said, it's not my usual thing, but I feel like that doing these, I'm gonna probably do more of these. I really dig them. Like I said, I feel like, and you obviously let me know ultimately the value you get out of them. But role playing games, especially in the kind of OSR sphere, are very war game adjacent as it is. And I finally get a lot of inspiration. I got a lot of inspiration from this, and I can see playing it by myself. Yeah, since I don't have a regular wargaming group. So yeah, really dug it. Great work. Thanks everybody. Check out the Discord. Apologies if you run into any difficulties getting on. Let me know, but you have to be sure to read the message and then basically signifies you read the message. If you do that, you'll get on the server. I should probably try to make a note or something on there. And it's a work in progress. So expect some bumps in the road as we get it going. But that's all I've got, folks. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.